what I tell people is that boring is good because
Mm.
that's when the creativity actually comes. I know generations before me, when they got bored, they created games that lasted generations, playing tag, whatever the case may be, right? And if you can actually sit in that boring time and just allow your mind to wander, allow your mind to just have these thoughts. And it can be scary at first because it can be thoughts that you necessarily don't want. But the more you sit down with it, you realize that a lot of these negative thoughts or whatever thoughts that we have aren't ours. It's just thoughts, right? And if you can just sit in that quiet time and not distract yourself, the gold and the magic is right there.
Good morning, Josh. Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. I've got the podcaster, Josh Dillingham, who is the leader of the podcast Playing Injured. He's one of the best podcasts on all the platforms out there. And by the way, they just went to YouTube just recently. So, Josh, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited about this podcast as well, Future Factory. I've watched a few episodes on YouTube, and you guys got a great show as well. So I'm pumped to be here.
You and I have done some shows together, and there's always some great topics to go through. Today I really want to get into some of your health and fitness stuff. You've got some protocols that you play in that I think are worth talking about,
Yeah,
and really get into that today.
100%. So one thing when it comes to fitness and health, I've always had empathy for folks who didn't play a sport. So for me, my background is being a former athlete, played college basketball here in downtown Chicago at Roosevelt University. And so fitness has always been a part of my life. But the reason why is because I grew up a chubby kid, right? That's where my inspiration for health and fitness comes about. So I got a story. As a young kid, I remember going to the pool, and this is kind of what bred the beast. And I think this is why challenges that we have in life actually build character if you allow it to, right? Seventh grade, going to the pool. I'm chubby at the time, and it's a table. Got all my middle school crushes at the table, and I asked my friend, I said, "Hey, can I borrow your towel? I want to cover myself up before I walk past this table." And my friend, he couldn't get the clue. And he's like, "Why do you need my towel?" Like, "Hey, I just needed to walk past this table." Right. And my there's another boy who overheard it. He's like, Josh is fat. Josh is fat. The girls, I'm looking at the table with girls, and they're all looking around, laughing at me. And it stung, right? And it was traumatizing at the time. I can visualize it. I can still remember it. But that created a beast. That created a beast. That really took me to a new level. But overall, what I've been able to do with my body, with my health and fitness, is the consistency of just having grace with myself and understanding that I'm not doing it for the validation of others. That's what it was for me at first. I wanted to get the validation
Sure.
from other people that, wow, he has a great body. Wow. Look at him. He looks amazing. What I wanted as I continued to, that's what I wanted at first, but as I continued the consistency of just learning about health and fitness, what I realized more so than anything is that I just wanted to build healthy habits. I just wanted to be as healthy as possible. And coming from a family that was not very healthy, I wanted to be able to change the trajectory of the generations past me. So that's probably one of the main reasons why I still go as hard as I do today.
I don't think it's uncommon that we all have this break in reality, right? We have this break. It's this part where we noticed we were different, And,
Yes.
we all have that kind of break somewhere, and when we find that, and oftentimes there's your winning formula that gets created. There's your shadow, right? The part of us that we're ashamed of, and then there's a part of us that really creates our winning formula, right?
Yeah.
I remember having a similar one. Mine was around being poor on the playground, right? I had like patches in my pants, and
Mm,
I went to school with like rich kids, and I was a very dark, very curly haired kid, and surprising, but at the time, I looked so different than they. They were very white and very, and I was very dark, and I remember like being ashamed of the holes in my pants, and
yeah.
I can almost say to you that's where like all of my desire to make money came from, was that I was going to show them, right? I was going to prove to you that I wasn't poor from there, and I think that's a really great thing to notice, that sometimes our winning, our shadow, or whatever we would call that, that break from reality, that break from the group, noticing that, hey, I feel fat, or people calling me out on it, and then now you've taken that to an extreme level, and you know, I,
Yeah.
sometimes it drives us, and sometimes we're doing it for the validation. In fact, I certainly have felt the validation from that, but then all of a sudden the transition past that becomes what you're talking about, that part that really says, I create a healthy lifestyle, and the work that you're doing to help that with other people in your life, right? The work
Right.
that it kind of started as a shadow mission, and then kind of becomes this next mission, which really becomes a much bigger vision of the opportunity.
Yeah. 100%. And you said something key there. Is like when you know it's something different about you, right?
Sure.
It kind of affects you differently when you don't, I guess, get the result that you want. Maybe you didn't feel validated, or something to that degree. It affects you differently. And I want to encourage people that when you feel let down, you feel some type of challenge, you feel some type of adversity, when you understand that you are worthy, that you are special as a person, which we all are, that's built to actually help you,
Mhm.
not hurt you. These challenges that we have are our own challenges. They're unique to us. And if we can really look at those challenges and embrace it and really change our perspective on it, these challenges can actually propel us to a level that is meant for us.
Yeah, like it's almost like the world. I don't know what causes that break. Why you had a break around your weight, and I had one
Yeah.
around poverty, but it's almost like the world calls that into existence. I don't know why it does. I don't know if it's a higher power, or a being, or the universe, or whatever higher power that pulls us into that. But all of a sudden now you start to realize maybe there's a mission in that, right? Maybe
Yeah.
that becomes my mission. I often wonder that most of us have this sense, like, what am I supposed to be doing here?
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of us feel overwhelmed, and I see it all the time with young men, and I work with a lot of young guys, and I'll see that their mission's really struggling. Right, there's so much abundance to do, and yet they're struggling to have any purpose in life. Right,
Yeah.
and the world doesn't help that with all the distractions we have. I mean, today everybody's smoking dope, everybody's drinking. That even if they don't do those things, it's just there's the internet and videos and YouTube and TikTok, and it helps me check out, and it's hard to hear that inner being that says, hey, start to notice, I have something for working out. I
Yeah.
have a thing around health. I look, it's been my driving force,
Yeah.
and my judgment is really that a lot of us are struggling to hear that, right? And we all want a purpose. Like I know once I get a purpose, I like a challenge. I
Mhm.
love being challenged. I love everything about the challenge. Climb it, work it, hard it. Like once I'm on task, I eat it up, right? I
Yeah.
mean, most of the time. There's times when I get tired or frustrated or something, but most of the time, the challenge for me is I love it. I kind of feel like, just put me on, put me in, give me a mission to go do. I will knock it down.
100%. And you said something interesting there. Uh, we're distracted.
Oh,
I mean, if you wake up in the morning and first thing you do is scroll Instagram or TikTok, your mind is already somewhere else. And you probably see 10 or 12 people, for instance, you'll see People who are really big into fitness and they have the body that you want. Then you see the guy who has the lifestyle. Then you see the guy that's at the club and you want to live that type of lifestyle. And it's so many different things that you built in your head to the point where you forget your own vision and purpose. And so the challenge is, how can we stay as focused on our own life as possible, and not get distracted? Not saying that Instagram and TikTok doesn't have its time where we can get on it, but how can we keep our vision, our goals, our purpose in the forefront? That's the main thing. How can we keep our screen time down? How can we actually understand who we are and why we're here, and what we can add to the world? And I think that's a big thing that a lot of folks go through today.
Well, I mean, I work on cars, and I don't do it a lot as often as my son does. And every once in a while to start a car, you'll pump some ether into it. But if you ran the car on ether to run, it blow the freaking engine up.
Right.
And a lot of times I feel like that's the same that's happening to us right now. It's that we get this sense of like, I see those things like fancy cars and great living, and a guy, I mean, when I see someone's in great shape, I'm like, I want to be like that. Now that feels great. Like that's it's the same thing with drugs and alcohol for me. When I got high or drunk, I got that,
That was easy.
Yeah.
oh, I felt good for a
That
moment.
was easy.
Right. And I kept doing that.
That was easy.
And I kept doing it. Then I'm pounding on the button and it's not working anymore.
That was easy.
And right. I kept trying it and I kept going back to it. And I couldn't get fulfilled. Right. I would try and then all of a sudden that becomes an addiction and stuff happens. And, then the rest of shame kicks in.
Yeah.
And I feel there's the corrosion. There's a part that shuts me out, and to go, okay, all right, look, I'm going to go through that. Life's going to have its ups and downs. And as we start to notice, all right, I've spent a morning checking out, and right now I've got teenage girls, and they go on and they have these streaks that they do, right? So streaks, I guess it's on one of the platforms they do streaks.
Oh, Snapchat.
Right? So they got Snapchat streaks. They got a couple hundred at a time or a couple thousand at a time, and I'm thinking, what a brilliant marketing campaign for Snapchat. Right.
Yeah.
It just programs my daughters to go on there and trains them to get that. And they're like, oh, look, I've got 200 days or 500 days. And Dad, you can't let me break my streak. I'll take their phone. I'm like, wait, look, I got to do my streaks. It is such a programming. And that's the part that scares me about the internet is that we don't even see it. Right. The once that algorithm gets me, right, it knows me better than I know myself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the part that's, really where I feel like it's going to be really hard as we move forward and more important than ever that we hold on to our fellows and say, hey, let's get some time where you're not being attacked by that machine. Right. How are we checking in with each other? Right. Just like we did, before we were a civilization, right. Where we were tribal, small little groups of people who walked with our elders. And we had guidance from people who loved us. And that was real supporting, right? That's why groups like AA work really well, because you got people there who are trying to help each other survive from alcoholism, or Boy Scouts or whatever small groups that get together that support each other, or groups like yourself that work, work together to help each other get fitness, right? Hey, that's not going to work, right? Someone who loves you, who cares about what you're doing, who can tell you yes or no about something, because sometimes when I get it from Instagram or Facebook it's not very fulfilling
At all. And, I think what's important is, talked about a little bit before the podcast, is creating. Are you creating or are you consuming? Right. What I've learned is that the more creating I'm doing, the more I'm staying in that space, the less I consume, just naturally. Because I'm so occupied with creating the podcast and marketing the podcast and creating reels and editing. And I know you can relate to this, and even building a company, right? You're so focused on creating and adding value to the world that you don't even want to consume. You really don't even have the need to consume, because You're getting that hard dopamine from from creating, from doing tasks on a daily basis. That's not only going to help you, your company, your brand, but it's going to actually add value. And then you get even more dopamine when you actually express your art, your creativity, and folks say, hey, that actually, changed my life, or this really helped me. I really needed this today. I think the key, the remedy to it is to create, is to produce your own work, your own, and have that purpose. And not get distracted by the things that we consume. Because like you said, these companies are very smart. They've done what they're supposed to do.
That's right. That's right. They're geniuses at. I mean, they're brilliant at how do we get our groups? That's the one that's hard. Like, how do you say? I watch it all the time, but I have a hard time when I walk in and say, hey, I don't know if you can notice, but I saw my son the other day. He had his phone. Every time I see him now, he's got a phone. He's just watching. He's walking and watching a YouTube video at the same time, right? Just face deep into it. And I know he's up to some good stuff, but I mean, just about every waking moment, he's staring at a YouTube video, which I'm certain there's some great stuff you're learning, right? There's for sure you're learning a lot of cool stuff, but also it's also a checkout, right?
Yes.
My judgment is that there's a checkout. Now, the hard part I have is I don't want to be the guy who walks around and I'm not here to scold everybody, tell them what to do. It's not my job to go rule the world. My job is to take care of me, right? And hopefully I can reach over when they need support. And sometimes as a parent, you feel like your need is to go tell them what to do. Like you did have to do this, and I don't know about you, but that never worked with me. I was,
Right.
in fact, I dug my heels in a little bit more, and I found myself being a little bit more stubborn, and not putting up with any of it. Now, how do you let someone go through what they need to go through and maybe just live as an example that maybe, all right, maybe they could see you do something different, or like you're doing, like the podcast you have is a phenomenal podcast. The work you're doing, the quality of it is phenomenal. Your growth is amazing with it. How do you show that example to other folks out there that are, maybe struggling and saying, all right, I want to go step out and do a podcast. How, how am I going to do that?
Well, first of all, I can't even say I'm perfect with it either.
Yeah,
A lot of times I'm on my phone too, and I grew up in that generation of wanting to have my phone and you know constantly consuming content and different things like that. It's to be aware, right? Maybe I have been on my phone. I can tell that my mood is a little bit off. I'm not as energized today. Well, I'm looking at my screen time, and I believe my screen time is directly tied to my energy level.
Right.
My brain is constantly working, And what I would tell folks is to first, it's a really good book called Indistractable by Nir Evol. He actually also wrote the book Hooked.
Cool.
He wrote the book Hooked, which is all about telling companies how to actually get folks hooked on a product that you're building, right? And so he didn't like how companies use that book to get folks and consumers really hooked on the book. And so he also wrote the book Indistractable, helping folks understand how can they stay as focused as possible on a day-to-day basis. And it's a few things he talked about is that it's just like a regular addiction. We use our phone for pain management.
Sure.
So we have to understand what it is. Usually, most of the time, we're bored. And what I tell people is that boring is good because that's when the creativity actually comes. I know generations before me, when they got bored, they created games that lasted generations, playing tag, whatever the case may be, right? And if you can actually sit in that boring time and just allow your mind to wander, allow your mind to just have these thoughts. And it can be scary at first because it can be thoughts that you necessarily don't want. But the more you sit down with it, you realize that a lot of these negative thoughts or whatever thoughts that we have aren't ours. It's just thoughts, right? And if you can just sit in that quiet time and not distract yourself, the gold and the magic is right there.
It's hard, right? I mean,
Yeah.
oftentimes that first start in it, hold on, it's not hard. Truth is, it's not really hard. It's not like back-breaking work, but
Right.
starting of it is uncomfortable. If it's better here, people
Uncomfortable.
say hard, and I think that's a misnomer. I think it's more uncomfortable, right?
Very.
Because I'm used to being distracted.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but I can be watching TV, a commercial comes on, and I go to my phone, right?
Yep.
There's never a time where I'm not constantly being, and the brain kind of it's like like the addiction, right? It's like it just goes and wants another hit. It needs that other hit. And sometimes that um when I slow down, I have a hard time meditating. I'm not gonna admit that. Yeah, I've tried meditating and I practice more and more, but it doesn't always feel at first very comfortable. Like sitting there, my brain goes through this, the asteroids go through my brain. But the best I've been able to do is read. I found
Yeah.
that reading the books like you were just talking here, like I just got hooked. Now I'm hooked. And for me, reading a book has been able to help my brain practice focusing because when I first started, 6 years ago, reading books, I had never read a book before that. I had never read a whole book in my whole life. I had never
Yeah.
read an entire book. It was kind of a shame to say that. I had read Cliff Notes. I'd watched movies. I've had an assignment. I would find videos. I never read a whole book. And I, it's about 6 years ago, I read my first whole book. And
Wow.
I was like, wow. I remember I got to the end of it, and it was like a few pages of like credits in there. And I got to the end, I'm like, oh my God, like that feeling of completing a whole book was amazing. And
Yeah.
right. And then from there, I've been able to do more and I can go a little faster now. I can consume them pretty fast. And there's something about being able to sit down at night and knock out 50 pages of a book that has my brain one have one thought at a time.
Yeah.
And sometimes while I'm reading, my brain will get a little creative. Like the idea that they're talking about, I'm like, oh, I can relate it to my day or what's going on in my
Yeah.
life, and or something I can't wait to share with somebody else. Like I can't wait to bring to work. Like, oh, that was a great idea. I would read a book about how to fly a horse. I just got
Mm.
done with that one last week, and it's great. It's talked about all the creative folks in the world, all the biggest inventions and inventors. That there really wasn't some real genius. It wasn't about being a genius. It was more about tenacity. Really, it was more about having a start of an idea and then working out more of it. And kind of, what I've always talked about is everything we've ever done in life is about expanding an idea. If you
Yeah.
look at every business we have, everything we had started as a thought in my brain. Sometimes I made it verbal, right? Which made it physical, right? I brought into the verbal. I told someone about it. Hey, I want to do this business, right? I remember when I first started CDO Group. I I was an outsourced construction management company, right? It was before you even had GC. Which at the time, we just wanted to manage other people's construction, and people were like, "What does that mean?" And the more I would talk about it, the more it got creative. So every time I would call and try to find customers, I would actually in the conversation be inventing the business.
Right.
In fact, I remember the first customer we got was Einstein Bagels. It was some guy I used to work for, and he gave me like 36 projects he didn't want to do. And something about that, like I was like, great. There was these remodels. He didn't want to do the remodels, and I got these. I got them. And I remember going, great, right. And as I told him about it, I we actually created it. And it was the first contract we wrote, the first deal that we did, and that kind of kept going. Every time we'd write a contract, every part of that is just an expand and organize. Now, the same thing happens with any thought we have, of fitness programs or
Yeah.
creative ideas. They're never. It's not that you figured out the end product, right? You don't figure out how to be the millionaire. You figure out how to write your first contract,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then from there, they expand.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You like you said, you talk about the quiet time and like a thought will come, and then you'll be able to verbalize it and then actually put it into action. And then you don't know the end result. You don't know how it's gonna happen. All you know is, okay, here's the first step. And what's crazy is you won't get to the 10th step unless you take the first step.
Yeah, oftentimes we'll call it throwing your keys over the fence.
Yeah.
I'm here's an idea. Throw my keys over the fence. And the problem is I can't go home with it unless I go get them. Right. You throw the idea out there, like, I want to do something. Now, here's the idea.
Just take one step.
Yeah, take a step towards the keys.
Yeah. And it's crazy. At that step, you'll learn what it takes to get to the next step, or an idea will come, or for some reason, somebody will come along that can help you get to that next step, or somebody who's actually been on that next step that can help you get there. But you literally cannot make it happen until you actually take step-by-step processes. And you can, I mean, even for kids or for anybody, the iPhone 14 Pro that we're at, it couldn't happen without the iPhone 1. And every year they've just learned something new to inspect what they can do better and then adapt it, inspect and adapt. And they constantly did that. And 14, 15 years later, they still are doing it. And so, but they couldn't get here without just the iPhone 1. And so don't worry about how it's going to happen. Just act, just do, and you'll learn something, or somebody will come along. It's really like magic. It's like the universe rewards action. It rewards action. And, it can be scary. It can be scary. It can be uncomfortable. I know CDO group. I know everything wasn't, I know sometimes you were sweating bullets with a lot of things, right?
Sometimes that's the fun part about being an entrepreneur, is that if you want to grow, what I can tell you is I've owned it for 25 years now, and you'll never, if you're an entrepreneur, there's never a time you can coast. You'll
Wow.
try, if you get to some point where you think you can coast, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna get to some executive level, and in today's time, and think you're going to coast. The truth is, you're either growing or you're dying. There
Wow.
is no coasting. Your competitors are coming at you every single day, right? You're getting attacked from the employee side, the material side. You're getting it from the work side. The competition's out there getting you. If you're, being an entrepreneur is a lot like being a shark, right? You have to swim all day. If you stop swimming, you drowned.
Yeah.
And some people don't understand that, but the truth is, there's something really fulfilling about that, right? For me, there's something about in the action of creating a destiny for myself that, I know that getting up and not finding life to be easier. In fact, if I would say one mantra for any entrepreneur is, don't pray for life to be easier, pray for you to be stronger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do I do that, right? How do I get myself ready for the battle, right? How do I show up in the office every day ready for what's about to happen? Because if I don't, if I don't get, if I don't show up at this office, right mind, right body, right dress, right outfit, right, I'm not going to be very effective. It's not very effective if you want to be an executive and you show up in a clown costume.
Right.
Right, it's not gonna be very effective if you show up at the office and you smell like booze.
Yeah.
Not gonna be very effective if you show up and you're haphazard. It's not gonna be very effective if you bring drama in from your personal life. You show up at the office and your car's not working, your thing's not working, you're 4 hours late because you couldn't get your tires are all flat. Like, it becomes real distracting. Or if you can't mentally be there, right? If you can't leave the rest of the world alone and be in that room ready to go. Most of the training I've done isn't about learning how to um, do better projects. I would say most of what's grown the companies I grow is the work I do on myself.
Mm.
To be able to look at Anthony and go, okay, how can you be more focused, right? Because ultimately, the part of an entrepreneur that's really important is that I bring like you talked about, creative ideas, solutions to, great leadership has always been about one thing. It's about bringing great ideas or bringing solutions to problems where one didn't exist.
Wow.
I say it all the time to people that in order to be a great leader, you've got to be able to bring really great ideas to it. Now, what I mean by that is, there are billions and billions of ideas every day. The problem is when I'm not clear-minded or clear-headed, or I carry a bunch of baggage, or I'm in a mental funk, right? Because look, I can be emotionally, I might not be physically drunk, right? I might not be physically drunk or high or something, but
Right.
I can be emotionally drunk, right? I can be in anger, fear, frustration. All those are just as much highs as anything else, right? I mean, I can check out, I can be resentful at fuck my wife, and oh my God, I got that government, those Republicans, those Democrats, oh my God, those people are, oh my God. I can be, and the world wants me there. Like you turn on a
Yeah.
news channel, they want me in that
Yeah.
spot, right? They want me all pissed off at somebody because they want you to be hooked on their shit, right?
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's part of a distraction. And I would say I'm still learning. I'm in that space of still learning where you, like you said, you don't want to pray for things to get easier. You want to get stronger so that you can handle the hard things better. And you actually are teaching me. I'm learning from you of, hey, these are things that are going to go on. It's always going to be some things going on in personal life that you can't bring to the office. You can't bring to projects that you're working on. And just being able to stay focused and keep your mind in a focused place, and be graceful with yourself if things aren't going where you need to go. Um, and so I'm still learning. Hey,
Let's
how
just
can I stay graceful? How can I?
let's talk about grace right there because I think that's key.
Yeah,
Having grace for myself and others, right? That's one that I don't know where, somewhere, I could go back to the English who create, the English were the masters of growing, right? They were phenomenal at coming into, how did this little country take over all the most of the world, right? How do they do that? Well, they would go into a place and they would, divide and conquer, right? They would divide them up and have one group fight against the other group, and they would, be on both sides, kind of work at both sides of it, and they prospered.
yeah,
Well, somewhere this divisive nature, and if you really look at today, the world, we've never been closer as people. I mean, I would even venture to say that, the first Civil War, we fought about, slavery, right?
yeah,
That was a big topic, right? Slavery. Should you be able to own a human, right? I mean, that was a big topic at the time, right?
right,
Today, we're all, we're all pretty clear that that was effed up.
right,
I mean, seriously, who are you? And or how about women couldn't vote,
yep,
or whatever color you were, you couldn't vote. Think about that today, and how much we've grown as society by
yeah,
releasing, just in the last, 50 years, where women rights came into place. I mean, at one time we thought they were lesser human beings,
yeah,
right? And today we really got, where was that? Where did that come from? Maybe at the time when the world was physical and they were more emotional and we needed physical beings. Maybe we translated that to more value. And then, in today, as we've evolved, we're much smarter as a people, and we're going to continue to evolve. We'll continue to get smarter, and our differences are really minor. Gun control. I mean, all right, look, should you have a gun or should you not have a gun? Okay, I got it. Abortion rights. All right, I got it. Maybe so that's, whatever reason it is, but overall, I think we're a lot closer than ever before. Now, some of the TV and social stuff, they love to divide us, and in that division, politicians find something that's divisive and they use that to get their control. And I go, okay, great. Now, I choose not to engage in that. I choose not to get myself caught up, and I'm not going to be mad at you because I don't believe that. Hey, look, if you believe that that's true, great. I think that every one of my ideas should be challenged.
yeah,
Right today, here, my best thought is, my favorite thought is, maybe the opposite of my thinking is true.
mm,
Maybe, and having you think the opposite of me is actually a benefit to all of us.
right,
We don't have this totalitarian existence where we all are ruled by some dictator, right? That you and I can challenge each other healthily,
yeah,
right? And come to some consensus that works for both of us and our group, that will be much better fit for our society than if, Putin or Stalin or one character told us what to do.
100%. And I think that's interesting because with having a sports background, man, me and some of my teammates, we would get into crazy arguments with each other, but for some reason it was still a love and respect there. We didn't allow difference in perspectives and difference in opinions to derail our friendship, derail what I think about him as a human. It was still love there,
Sure.
right? How can we keep that same mindset of like, yes, we may not agree, yes, we need to try to understand each other's perspective. But you literally cannot see out of somebody's eyes what world they're in. We all experience the world so differently that no way I can just say, hey, you're wrong, you're incorrect. Because your world is totally different. I don't know it. I literally cannot see what you see. Um, Only way we can do that is by having a conversation and detaching our emotions from the conversation and realizing that, hey, they're valid. Their experience is valid from their world, and understanding that and not saying, hey, they're just a bad person. They don't understand this,
How
this, and
in
that.
fact, needed, and not
Yeah.
just valid, but it's needed. Like I need a little bit of pushback in my thinking. I just
Yeah.
I can't trust that my ego hasn't made something up. Right? In fact, remember we talk about it, Fred, right, the guy in my brain all the time, right?
Yep. Fred.
Fred in my head. I can't. He's kind of a jerk. Right. I could use worse words to describe him, but he's kind of a jerk. And he makes up some stuff that it's really not kind to me. I mean, if Fred was someone in front of me, I'd punch him in the mouth. Right.
Right.
Come on. He says some mean things about me and stuff or thinking or people. Right. He makes up these stories and I can't always trust. I don't understand why. I really don't understand why, but there's part of it is part of that primitive brain that had me protect myself from dinosaurs and intruders and some of that's still there. But today I've got so much abundance. He's a little outdated. Now, maybe not. Maybe that just I need to really notice him. And with the tools we have today, more than ever, we are really noticing that some of our inner dialogue could be shifted. And
Yeah.
we see in others sometimes before we see in ourselves. And then we go back to that thing we were talking about before. If we could just have a little bit of grace,
Yeah.
their path that they're on hasn't gotten to where they're going. And that's not even judgmental. That maybe I my path isn't somewhere where I can see that maybe they are right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm way off. It's hard to stand there, but maybe they're the ones who's right and I'm the one who's wrong. And maybe I can't see that. If I have just a little bit of grace for them, allow them to have room for their ideas, and they let me have room for my ideas. I mean, think about this for centuries. Most of this country was built because religions fought over. I mean, in Eastern Europe, they were fighting over. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people died because the nuance in is it Mother Mary or is it Jesus or is it do I drink wine at the ceremony or do I not? I mean, the nuances that they fought over that killed each other were so silly.
It's crazy.
It was all about religion. They fought about whose religion was right. And religion in itself is the most made up story that ever existed. Right.
Right.
They're all made up. There's no, I've studied dozens and dozens of religions and all I can tell you is they're 2-year-olds describing algebra. I mean, it's at best. I mean, look, they're best to describe God, which is this being that maybe best I can see is in each one of us.
Right.
Josh, the God in me bows to the God in you. The work that you're doing, the work that you do with so many people, that I bow to that. Like I'm grateful that you're working on creating that content, the work that you do to expose these conversations to thousands and millions of people. Your work is phenomenal.
100%. And I appreciate that. And I can bow back at you and say the same. Right. And as somebody who creates, and that's why, and I want to chat about this a little bit. As a creator, I have a lot of respect for you. And I know I can feel that you have respect for me as somebody who's out there actually creating. And in this world now, with the distraction that we have folks who can jade us, who may not be in that creative space, who may not be doing anything. And they can sit on the sidelines and they may have words for you. And they might not understand your vision, your purpose. And you have to give them grace, like we talked about. But I bow to you in understanding the punches and things that you went through on your journey to be where you're at. And, like you said, you continue to get stronger and you can handle those outside voices better. But they're on the sidelines. And so the voices that you want to listen to are the folks who are out there creating and building and are living fearlessly. So I want to bow to you, and I want to say, man, I appreciate you. You gave us a good show that I can't wait to release, and I appreciate you inviting me on this show to express and have an amazing conversation.
Gosh, I love that. You know, in this now time, we are called as humans to know that we're changing faster than ever. I mean, ever. What we're doing now, it's the multiplier of civilization. I mean, the amount of change it will have in the next 50 years will blow us up, which really relates to opportunity, right? I mean, there's never been a more abundant time for opportunity.
Yes.
So people love to get caught up in the AI is going to take my job and what am I going to do? And that's a great way to jump in some fear or jump in that fear. Go ahead, go ahead. AI is going to take my job. I'm going to sit here and eat cookies. Great. AI is going to take my job. I'm going to sit here and just be afraid. Right? AI is going to take my job. Just check out. Great. Here, if you'd like to, you could get high on checking yourself out and so, dig your hand in the sand and go, there's something I could do. Or you can look at it as the most abundant time on the planet to go out and find the opportunity. As we change, there's always, that's where the opportunities have been. It's always been there. People are thirsty for help. The work you do in the self-help world, the fitness world. I mean, as we have all this abundance, how do we learn to live with it? And how do we learn to center ourselves? How we learn to keep a healthy mentality? I mean, now that we don't have to, I mean, I was, I've been telling a story a lot lately. I went to Costco the other day and I bought a 6-pack of muffins, those big giant, like head size.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. They were like, the little lady at the store, she's like, sir, you have to buy 12 of those. I'm like, I don't want 12. She's like, no, we only sell them 12. I'm like, all right, so now I have 12 head size muffins that I didn't need, right? Because they only sell them in 12 packs. Like, okay, or 2 6-packs. And that's kind of a description of the world that we're in. We have so much abundance. There's so many things that we can do. And if we can help each other, right? We watch our brothers and sisters as they go through this fear they're going through and just hold their hand and say, hey, this is a great time for you to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I'm here with you. Look, as you get in that creative mode, because what we know about the human is we're the most adaptable creatures on the planet that ever in the universe that have ever existed. We have this spiritual part of us that is connected to maybe even thousands of lives. Maybe we've done this thousands of times. There's knowledge inside of us that is intuitive, that is insightful. There are things inside of me that I bring from multiple places on the planet. And I don't even understand it. Today, I study multiple lives, and I'm trying to find, because there's things that we do that don't make sense that I learned in this one lifetime. There's things I have or ideas that I bring that I didn't learn now. I brought it from somewhere.
Yep.
And maybe when I stop being afraid, right? When I stop checking out, I stop getting high, and I just stand in the moment of uncomfortable and do what you talked about. Be in that moment of thinking, the intuitive thought that is connected to all the universe will come through me and bring a solution to that problem. And there's my next opportunity to create something dynamic around.
Yeah, 100%. Just go on a walk. Start, I know it's tough. Go on a walk without your phone. Leave your phone at home and just go on a walk. And it'll be uncomfortable at first, but then it will get comfortable because of all the thoughts that start to come in, and you'll be like, wow, all these different solutions to different problems, and your mind gets opportunity to quiet down. 30-minute walk, 45-minute walk, no phone, out on the neighborhood.
There's a challenge that's worth trying on.
Yeah.
That's one little challenge that here, number one, I'm going to put that in my life. I do like a 5.8 mile walk, but I got my phone in my hand the whole time. So I love that idea of maybe leaving that here. Like even the thought of that, like here, the trigger was, you're going to leave your phone at home. Like, what if people need to get a hold of you?
Yeah.
Right. We're so addicted to it. Even myself, I just noticed that when I said that, I'm like, I'm going to leave my phone at home and go do the 5. That takes me about an hour and a half to walk that it's usually 5.8 miles. It takes me about an hour. I do it early in the morning. I haven't been doing it in the summer, in the winter time, but I do it in the summertime. And it's kind of beautiful, that walk. You see the rabbits and Oak Park's kind of a beautiful place to see. People got some great yards around here, a great house.
100%.
Kind of fun
Yeah.
to check it out.
Yeah, and it'll be uncomfortable. But it is, I mean, in a way, it's meditation. It's meditation. You get a chance to really experience the world, and a lot of things will hit you at that moment.
Well, Josh, I love having you on a podcast or being on your podcast. Your work is just enlightening. It's beautiful. I'm grateful to have you on here. Anytime you get a new breakthrough, and folks, make sure you go check out his YouTube channel, right? Make sure you go check it out. It's Playing Injured Podcast. They just started launching on YouTube. Take a minute and go jump on it and see the work that Josh is doing. It's worth checking out. And Josh, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Anthony. This is a lot of fun, and yeah, folks, you'll be seeing Anthony on my YouTube channel in a little bit. So if that's any motivation to get out there, you'll see him there soon. So Anthony, I appreciate you, and man, like I said, no better way to spend a Friday morning.
Thank you, sir. We will do it again. If people want to get a hold of you, where do they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me at josh.dillingham@playinginjured.com, or you can go to pretty much any social media site. It'll be Playing Injured Pod, where you can reach me at. I pretty much handle all the social media channels for Playing Injured. So reach out to me there, and let's get in touch.
Grateful. Thanks for being on. Folks, if you liked our show today, like always, please just take 1 second right now and just hit the like and subscribe. Right? Please hit that button. It means the world to us, the editors and the team over here, the work that we're doing. It just kind of just says thank you, and it just really helps us. It just feels great when you do it. So please take a second, do that now if you could. All right. That being said, Josh, thanks for being on the show.